It is super hard to save money. I think like 70% of Americans don't even have $1,000 in their bank account. So now when you're trying to buy a house, that is an extra feat to figure out how to get this started, how to get the money. So now when you have a whole extra little human that you're taking care of, that is now a whole extra layer of, okay, how do I get this done? So I am super excited to have my guest today, Niesha, who bought her very first house by herself, and she's a single mom. Welcome to the show, Niesha.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Niesha, how did this whole thing of trying to buy a house get started? Tell us where this idea even came into your head.
I mean, I guess that's something I've always known that I would do. My grandmother owned her home. My mom owned the home with her husband. Watched my aunts own their home, so it's always been, something that I knew that I would eventually do. But my actual process to purchasing a home, um, I started to outgrow my apartment. Like I had a pretty big apartment, but with a little person and all of his things and all of my things and all the extra things, I started outgrowing my apartment. I felt like I was suffocating. So I was like, okay, it's time. It's time to pull the trigger. Let's figure this out and go for it.
So it sounds like growing up, you had some examples of other people owning their houses, right? So
Yeah.
did it ever feel like, did you ever have this feeling like it wasn't possible, or because you just had these examples, it felt like, okay, this is something that's doable?
I know it was doable because I saw it. I've seen it done, but there was a point where, like bad credit. I went to college, so student loan debt. Then having my son and getting what I felt like pushed back even further financially because now it's not just me living off my salary, it's someone else as well. There was a time where I was like, maybe this isn't in the cards for me. Maybe I gotta wait till I get married or I'll get a sponsor.
What kind of sponsor are we talking about here?
Right. I'll get a sponsor. But, there was a period where it was kind of like, this is going to be hard. It's going to be real hard. But I don't know. I never really felt like it wasn't doable. It just would be hard.
So I guess like with the credit and with having a son, like what did you tackle first? And then like what is it that made you decide, okay, like it's time for me to get this done? Like what was the biggest hurdle that you had to overcome to even get started with buying this house?
Honestly, it was really God driven. Um, once I realized that it was time for me to pull the trigger, everything really just kind of fell in place. And I'm
Mm,
not saying that to say, that there weren't any obstacles and everything just worked immediately. Obviously, there were some challenges that I had to overcome. I had to get my credit together because I did not have the best credit when I initially determined that I wanted to buy a house. So it was figuring out what that looked like and learning more about credit. I work in the finance industry as well. So I knew some things about credit, but it's always credit itself is situational. It's based on your individual situation and what you have going on your credit report. So figuring out what that looked like for me, not, becoming one of my own clients.
mhm.
And then once that was figured out, I had a pretty substantial income. Like I've always made pretty good money considering. Um, and by that time, I had figured out what that looked like with two people living off of one income. So, putting that into place and restricting my budget a little bit more, really sitting down and be like, okay, this got to get cut out. I can't go to Starbucks every day. That has to end, okay, maybe twice a week. And if I have a really bad day. But other than that, things are I need to focus. It was putting things into focus, putting things into perspective. And I'm that person, once I have my eyes set on a goal, um, it's really hard for me to I become laser focused and it's no sidetracking me. So I had to really sit down and say, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do. And these are the things that I need to block out in order to do that.
So
But I
there
can't really say it wasn't any hurdles at all.
There are a lot of gems that you shared there. And even though you feel like there were no hurdles, like figuring out your credit and figuring out your budget, like those are major things. There's people that go through their whole life
Mhm.
and don't even like figure that out. And I love what you said about credit is situational, because people think, hey, I'm gonna just take this thing over here and do this here, remove some inquiries, and that's gonna fix my credit. But the problem is what you need to do depends on, like you said, what is actually happening on your specific credit report. And people miss that
Mhm.
bit. But I absolutely loved what you said about focus. Because if you know what you're trying to do, if you know where you're going, it becomes easier to say, okay, I want the caramel macchiato, but I gotta just let it slide for today because I want to
Right.
get that house. By the
Right.
way, we have some support for getting a sponsor to buy houses. Thank
Okay.
you so much, Jeff. We also have Charlotte, North Carolina, in the house representing. Welcome, Kelly. And oh, I thought I saw a couple of Charlottes, but yeah, welcome, Kelly. Oh, and Jeff. Welcome, welcome. Um,
Hey,
so
friend.
North Carolina. So with your credit score, so what was your credit score when you started kind of working towards this house? And then how long did it
Mhm.
take you to get to, what number did you decide was your number to actually start looking at houses?
So when I first started, I was in the low sixes. I don't actually remember exactly what my credit score was like specifically, but I do remember it being in the low sixes. And while I was able to get pre-approved, and so I'm also a realtor. And this is the information that I tell my clients. Yes, you can get a realtor first, and it is absolutely okay to get a realtor, but get a realtor that knows what they're doing, that has some experience, real life experience, not just going through the real estate course. Because I was able to get pre-approved at several different places, but it wasn't until I got with the realtor who actually took me to the finish line. And she introduced me to a lender, and he was like, I can get you pre-approved, but if you get to a 680, I can get you pre-approved at an X rate, and this will be your payment. Is well below what you said you're comfortable with. Like, he really educated me on what that would look like. And so even though I had a pre-approval letter and I was able to go look at homes, me sitting down looking, talking with him and looking at what my credit looked like at that point, it was like, okay, let's get to a 680, because if I don't have to pay an extra $300-400 a month because of having not perfect credit, not good credit, then why pay it? Um, so by the time I actually bought my house, I was in the 700s. But him sitting me down and saying, "You can do it, but this will be better."
Yeah, I love that your lender took the time to educate you. And I
Right.
also love that you said like you had pre-approvals, like you talked to other lenders before, but not everybody actually sat you down and told you, hey, like you can get a house, but here are additional options. Um, so I think moral of the story here, guys, is you have the option to talk to different lenders. Just because you have a pre-approval from that one person doesn't mean you have to stick with them. These people get paid commission on you, so
Mhm. Right.
be sure
Make
to
them
look
work
around.
for it. Mhm.
Make them work for it. Um, uh, I kind of there's like so many places I want to go because like you're dropping so many bits of great information. um,
Good.
so you got your pre-approval, you talked to your realtor, and your advice right now is that really like figure out your finances first, right? Before you talk to a realtor. Did I hear that correctly?
You figure it out. At least have some baseline knowledge of what you're doing, because the heartbreaking part of um a lot of people's situation is they're just uneducated around what it takes and what that process is going to look like. So they go out here and they go on Zillow and Realtor.com and Homes.com, and they see all these big, beautiful houses, $700,000-800,000, and they know, okay, well, I have pretty decent credit and I can get approved for a home. But just because you can get approved for it based on your credit, your income may not allow for you to actually afford what that mortgage payment is going to look like. So you have to have some at least foundational information and knowledge around what your specific situation looks like. And that's what I had to do, is because, it's not just me living off my income. I have a little one that depends on me 100%. I can't tell him go out here and get a job to add to the income. It's on me. So, that was my situation. So becoming familiar with having a foundation with what your situation looks like before you go to a realtor is important. Even if you go to a realtor and you're not pre-approved, like I said, having that knowledgeable realtor that had some, compassion, and she had some real life experience, she was able to introduce me to the lender that I ultimately ended up going with. Had she not done that, my mortgage payment right now would be $300 more. $300 is a lot in the grand scheme of things when it comes to raising a kid. So that's like a week of daycare. I mean, he's out of daycare now, but at that time he was in daycare. That's only a week of daycare in North Carolina. So, that is important. Is having some foundational knowledge of what your situation looks like before you talk to any professional, so that you understand the legal lingo that they're using. Because if you don't even understand what they're talking about, you're still going to be lost, no matter how much knowledge they have.
So when you bought this house, were you a realtor already or not yet?
No. And I am happy to tell their story as to how that happened, but I'll let you choose the path that we want to go on. But
we'll hold off on the realtor story for a second. So you said that it is important for you to have that baseline knowledge, right, of how this whole process even works. So going in high school, nobody taught me, I'm sure nobody taught you about buying a house or about credit, about budgeting. And so how did you, as a regular person, go about figuring out those basics of just how the home buying process works, so you felt like you're comfortable talking to the realtor about even like how to understand that credit scores are specific to you and how to adjust your budget to make sure that when you even got to a lender, you weren't just falling in love with the house. It sounds like you were clear about how much you wanted to spend specifically. And that only happens if you actually understand what your money looks like, if you're actually budgeting. So how did you go about kind of getting yourself educated and prepared to even like step into buying this house?
Right. So, I mean, I guess for me, it was kind of happenstance because I do work in the finance industry. And I have worked my way up to where I am now. I started out as a teller in the bank and became a personal banker. And that's where I got a lot of my knowledge around credit and finance and having good credit and budgeting and everything, is being a banker. And I know everyone can't do that. That's not in the cards for everyone, but maybe go into the branch and have a relationship with the banker, so that they can teach you things. But for me, it was becoming a banker and I see people go from millionaires to barely hundredaires in a matter of weeks because they don't understand money. And so me being able to share in that experience with them let me know, like, okay, this is not what I want. So, you know, how can I learn from their experience? And then seeing people get denied for mortgages, and seeing people lose investments, and people gaining investments. I worked in a very affluent area at one point, and learning a lot from my clients about how they attained their wealth, and what the things that they were doing to keep their wealth. So for me, like I said, it was happenstance, and I know everyone can't do it, but building a relationship with a banker is beneficial as well, so they can teach you. But for me, it was working in the finance industry and seeing it from all different angles.
Yeah. I love that tip, that even if you are not in the industry, when you are in front of a professional, ask them questions.
Right. That's what, again, make them work for it. That's what they're there to do, is to educate.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause there's all this knowledge, but if you don't ask, you're not going to know. And if you apply for a mortgage, you get denied. So when people come to me and it's like, why did you get denied? Oh, I don't know. You got to ask. Because if you don't ask the question, then you're not going to know exactly what you need to work on in order for you to get to the next step. We have Kiana here who is saying, yep, she is agreeing 100%. You got to ask those questions, honey. So you have your budget together, you're clear on what you want, you find your dream star realtor. I am curious, how did you go about finding your realtor? How did you know that was the realtor for you? How did you find your realtor? Any tips on that?
Okay.
I always have bad luck with realtors.
It wasn't easy. It was not easy. I actually went through a program with my bank. They had a first time home buyer program, and they were actually one of the ones that pre-approved me for a mortgage. And they had a program where they would connect you, a first time home buyer, with a realtor that had been approved by them or selected by them or went through a program and been certified by them. And they connected me with several realtors actually. My realtor that took me to the closing table was the fourth realtor that I worked with. So finding her was not an easy process whatsoever. The first realtor, she stopped doing real estate in the middle of my search. The second realtor, and I really hate to say this out loud because you don't want to believe that these things happen in any industry in today's world. But it was obvious he did not want to work with me as a Black woman, and he made it clear that that was the reason that he didn't want to work with me. And he just kind of brushed me off as, I don't work with people with this low of a budget. He hadn't even seen my budget. So, it's kind of, it was what it was. He didn't want to work with me, and I dang sure didn't want to work with him at that point.
Wow.
So, yeah. And then the third realtor, we had a discovery call the first time, and she never called me back. So I went to the program administrator that worked with me from the bank, and I was like, look, this is what I want in a realtor. You need to interview them before you send me anybody else. Because at this point, I'm going to go find the house myself. And nobody's going to get a commission, not even you, because I know you get paid off of this transaction. So before you send me to anybody else, these are the boxes that they need to check off. And he found it. And she was great. I mean, it's like a job. Like, of course, there were things about her that I wish were different, but in the grand scheme of things, she educated me. She talked to me. She was communicative. She was responsive. So that's all I asked for. And she was knowledgeable. So it wasn't a straight line road. There was some curves. There were some hills that we had to overcome.
Sounds like there was a lot of curves and hills.
Yeah.
Sounds like we're walking to Alaska, honey.
Right. Right.
Um, so the bank where this first time home buyer program through your bank, what bank was that? I don't know if you know if that is that program still happening. And is it specifically for North Carolina? Is it countrywide? I don't know if you know any of those specifics.
Now I would assume that it's at least national because the person that helped me was in Connecticut. It's through Navy Federal Credit Union.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Right. And I assume, because I've heard of other credit unions having similar programs, I would assume that most credit unions, at least, I don't know about big banks. I know a big bank that doesn't, but I won't. But I would assume that most credit unions have a program similar. And I would also assume that Navy Federal's is nationwide because the banker that was helping me was in Connecticut.
Mhm.
So, with me being in North Carolina, obviously there's some space.
And it's just called like first time home buyer program, or there's a specific name in case anybody wants to look into it.
I believe it's just the first time home buyer program. And with the program, they find you a realtor, and he did monthly check-ins to see how the relationship was going. So even though I was having these issues with the realtors that we were trying to work with, there was always that second layer of, what's going on here. There was always some eyes on it. And then at the end of the transaction, I actually got a rebate. So there was, yeah. So
you like that?
I think I got 2%. There's tiers to it, and if I remember the program correctly. So if you go and you try to get the information, it's not exactly what I'm saying. This is what it was at that time. There was tiers, like if you bought a home between and these are arbitrary numbers, like between 100,000 and 250,000, you got this amount back. If it was between 250 and 500, you got this amount back. So I think I want to say I got 2% of my purchase price back. So
that's great.
Yeah. So I got back almost as much as I went to the closing table with.
And that 2% goes is back to you in cash, or it's put towards the transaction?
Direct deposit into my checking account.
Hey, we like
Yes,
that.
yes, yes.
So y'all, I mean, make sure you check out Navy Federal to see if this program still exists. This was when was this? When did you buy your house? It was pretty recent.
I closed on my home in 2021.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
y'all check out to see if this program still exists at Navy Federal. I'd be surprised if it's not nationwide because Navy Federal's I think isn't Navy Federal I think Navy Federal's the biggest credit union in the US. I could be wrong, but it's
Hmm.
up there. So um and I when it's your first time, you don't know like how to do this stuff, right? Like even if you know
Right,
the people that have bought your first house, I think their first house, I think their first house, excuse me. I think it's really nice that they have this like case manager that like follows up with you to make sure everything is going well. I also really
right,
loved how you told him, "Hey, like you better help me find this correct realtor."
right, right.
Because
No,
I know if I don't close, you're not gonna get your check. So like make this happen. Um,
right.
and it's like it's so frustrating when you're trying to work with somebody and then they don't, like they don't call you back, or like the person that said they don't work with your budget, they don't even ask you, like they don't even know what your budget is. Like that's absolutely insane. That's crazy. Um, but sadly, I'm not surprised. And so I guess if somebody is in that situation where they're feeling like they're reaching out to realtors, they aren't getting any traction, what would you say to that person that's like, hey, I've been calling all these people, they're not calling me back, I'm about to give up. What is your advice as somebody that's been there and also as a current realtor? What would you say to them?
Fire them. Fire them. It's that easy. Like at the
You're
end of the
fired.
day, you're fired. Like, and realtors fire clients, but at the same time, the realtor works for you. It's not the other way around. So if they're not giving you what you need, it's time to move on. Even if you've signed paperwork, and I'm telling you this, like if any of my clients were to feel that way, even though we sign a contract saying that I now work for you, if it's not a mutually beneficial relationship, there's another piece of paper that you can sign that says we cancel this relationship. So don't
Oh,
ever
that's
feel
a
like
really good tip.
yeah, don't ever feel like you're stuck with one person. Just like jobs fire people every day and they have your onboarding paperwork that you sign. When you get ready to leave and they fire you, you sign something else. It's never nothing is ever not negotiable, especially in real estate. That's one of the first things they teach us in realtor school is everything's negotiable. So if it's not working out and we have a sit down conversation about what's not working out and things don't change, sever the relationship. Period.
I didn't know that if even if you had a buyer's agent contract, you could just piece out of it. So that is very, very helpful to know. So y'all, if your realtor's not working for you, on to the next. There are so many realtors ever
Yeah.
that are really that are willing and able to help you, and that actually meet your needs. It's a relationship, and like that person has to understand like what you need and listen to you and communicate and help you wherever you're at. And if they're not doing that for you, it's going to make for a stressful home buying experience, and that is never a good thing.
Right. Right. Yeah.
um, so it looks like Kelly here had a similar experience as well. Kelly, did you fire your realtor? Let us know. We want to know because we don't want any bad experiences out here. Um, so tell us how did you go about deciding what what house to get, right? So you have your pre-approval, you have your realtor that you like, you have your lender. Now you're at that not beyond 680, now you're in that 700s. Hey, um
Yes.
how did you go about actually finding this house? And I guess like were there any additional considerations being that you're a mom?
So for me is so this is not my forever home. Um, I knew that going into I was not looking for my forever home. I wasn't looking for my dream home. I was also realistic about what my lender had pre-approved me for versus and this was something that he educated me on was like this is what you're pre-approved for. That does not mean that you have to use the full amount. And if you don't use it, that means your monthly payment will be lower. Um, so finding my home was like, okay, what's the area looking like? Is it a area that's growing because this will eventually become an investment property for me? Um, What do the schools look like? Now, unfortunately, in North Carolina, you can't ask your realtor about schools. I mean, you can ask, but they're not supposed to tell you or give you recommendations about school districts. They can
Huh.
just tell you, say that again, sorry.
I'm surprised. I just said, huh, that's surprising.
Yeah, like they can say it's in the Charlotte Mecklenburg County School District, but that's about it. Um, but for me, it was about schools because at that time he was in daycare. But I know I'm going to live here at least 5 years, at minimum 5 years. So he's going to be in school by the time I get ready to move again. So what does the school system look like? And then um, it was a number of different factors. The size, because like I said, the whole reason that I even started looking for a house because I was outgrowing my apartment. I didn't want to pay somebody else's mortgage anymore. So the payment, there were so many different factors that I had to sit back and think about. So that's why they say home buying is not the easiest process. It's a very stressful process because there's so much to think about, so much to consider. Um, but it doesn't have to be like give you heartburn all the time. So my realtor made it easy with taking me to different neighborhoods. I went to Monroe, which if you're familiar with Charlotte, the Charlotte area is like 35, 45 minutes outside of the main city. I went to Concord, which is the opposite direction, about 20 minutes outside the city. Like I went to different areas surrounding Charlotte to see, what do these areas look like? What's the housing, the growth in the areas look like? And then determine, eventually I determined I want to stay in the Charlotte city limits because it makes more sense from an investment perspective going forward. Um, and then it was like, what did I like aesthetically? Aesthetics was the last thing on the list. I was like, okay, the model home looks nice. It's enough space. I have a garage. The backyard is good. Okay, let's buy it. It was really just like that. It was like, this is the right one. I like all these things. Where's the paperwork? And that was it.
Yeah. I mean, I love how you said that you going into it, you already knew that it was not your forever home. Like you already had a goal in mind as to here's what I'm doing and here's why I'm doing it. And so now when you are looking at areas, when you're looking at schools, when you're looking at you thinking through everything, it's easier for you to make that decision because you know what you're trying to do with this place. Whereas if you're just going in and you're just like, hey, I'm just looking at houses without any kind of goal in mind, it
Right.
becomes a harder process. Um, so you decide on the city limits. This is what works for you, and then you find this house, and you just knew. uh,
Literally, you get a feeling. It is a feeling. It's like, and there was nothing here. It wasn't even grass. It was dirt when I came
okay,
to look at it. And I stepped on the lot and I was like, this is where I want it. Let me see what I have to pick from. So it's really that simple.
so they actually built this house for you from scratch.
Yes. This was
That
a new build.
is that common in Charlotte, or is it
The market right now in Charlotte is crazy because Charlotte is one of those heavily gentrified areas right now. Because it's an old city. It's a very old city and it's a very big city. So there are a lot of places where it's a new build, but it's not a new development. So they're tearing down things like older homes and things like that and rebuilding them with more modern design. They're cutting down every tree they possibly can and building um, these like row homes almost, kind of like what you see out in LA. Um, and it really depends on what side of Charlotte you're on, what the houses look like, and what the availability is, whether it's going to be a development like mine, where it's a bunch of single family homes, or if it's going to be a townhome community. There are so many townhome communities in Charlotte right now. Um, so it's a lot of different spaces in Charlotte.
hmm. I have not been to Charlotte. Everybody keeps saying that I should go, and I'm not gonna want to come back. So I'm gonna have to come.
Yeah, well,
We're not in Charlotte.
right. Yeah, I'm not originally from Charlotte. My best friend is from Charlotte, and I would come home with her. We used to have CIAA in Charlotte, and like the last year that we had CIAA, I was living in Raleigh, and I was like, I'm gonna move to Charlotte, and I got a job. and I moved to Charlotte.
You're like, I'm here.
Hmm.
What is CFLA for folks that don't know?
It is, I don't know what the letters stand for, so forgive me, but it is a basketball sports tournament.
Dormant. Okay.
So if you went to a HBCU, you know what it is. But now
Okay.
they have it in Maryland. They have it in Maryland now, I believe. Charlotte had it for so many years, and the contract ended. And they took it to Maryland, but I do believe it'll be back. So.
Okay. Okay. So you bought this house where, and when you signed the contract, there was nothing there. So
Mhm.
is if you're buying a building that's not built yet, is there a different process from when you're buying a regular house, or how do you can you use a regular loan? Is there a different contract? Like what happens if you're buying something that is being built from the ground up?
The process itself is from a lending perspective is the same.
Okay.
Um, but as far as like time frame and what goes into the loan itself can be different depending on what style. So if you get a townhouse, the lending is kind of different because there are different factors they take into consideration, your HOA fees. Um, that if you get a single family new build, they don't consider that in your monthly payment. It's not considered
Okay.
in your debt to income when they figure that out. Um, but that is another thing that you do have to think about with the new build community. 9 times out of 10, you're going to have HOA fees. With an existing home, especially in a lot of the neighborhoods in Charlotte, they don't have HOA fees in some of these older communities. Um, Time frame is going to be different when you are looking at a new build versus an existing home. I just had a client, we took her from pre-approval looking at houses to the closing table in like 3 months. It was less than 3 months actually. Whereas I found my home in early September, I didn't get to move in until March because I had to wait for it to be built. So your time frame, you got to, especially if you're leasing somewhere and your lease is going to end, you have to think about the time frame. That's probably the biggest difference from logistics perspective. But the lending itself, you still got to go through getting a pre-approval. You still have to go through appraisal, even though there's nothing there. You still have to go through, your debt to income is still considered the same way. So the lending is still the same, but the process itself may have some differences logistically.
So I can use a regular FHA, a regular conventional loan to get a new construction.
It's actually so that part is actually, I don't want to say better, but it's a lot less strenuous because when you're buying a resale, the person who is selling that house has the ability to say, we're not going to accept FHA loans. We're not going to accept VA loans. They have the autonomy to be able to determine what type of financing the person buying the home can have. Whereas with a new build community, typically, I'm not gonna say they won't do it, but typically they don't care what type of financing you have as long as you can meet the requirements as far as your down payment and everything. That's all they're looking for, and you can get whatever type of financing you're approved for. That's up to you. And a lot of times, the new build communities, every time, they have in-house lenders. So they'll give you different perks for using their in-house lenders. Like they'll give you money, they'll pay your closing costs sometimes. They will give you like when you buy a new build, most of the time you have to buy like the blinds and the refrigerator and washer and dryer. They'll throw all that in so that you don't have to buy it. Um, so finance, what type of financing you use, that can be different for new build versus an existing home.
Okay. And that's really I had no idea. So that's super informative for sure.
Hmm.
I thought that you had to have like a special loan to buy a brand new building. So interesting.
Hmm. Nope, you can
Um,
use FHA, conventional, VA, it doesn't matter. Cash.
Cash always does everything. I'm like,
Right.
ooh, maybe I need to look into a brand new house. This is exciting.
Hmm.
Um, so okay, so And you decided to stick with your original lender, correct? Or did
Hmm.
you did not use the building's lender, the builder's
I
lender?
didn't. And this is
Okay.
why I say make them work for it. I didn't
Okay.
use the builder's lender, even though the builder's lender was offering me more incentives and a, a better rate initially. However, make them work for it. I went to my lender. I said, look, this is what DR Horton is offering me. What can you do? Oh, I can match
Mm,
it. And I'll give you an extra $3,000 in closing. Okay.
mm. I hope y'all caught that gem, fam. You know, if you have multiple can't think of the word. Estimates,
Loan
right, from
origination.
different lenders. Yeah,
Mhm.
you can go to one and say, "Hey, I got this. Like, can you match this? Can you make it better?" Right? You're not obligated to stick to one person. So I absolutely love that you went ahead and you said, "Hey, uh do something more for me."
Right. Yeah.
um yeah, I love um your personality of just going through and saying, "Hey, like, what can you do for me? Hey, like, I need you to do this for me." Just going ahead and asking for it. I think a lot of first time home buyers are scared. I know I was scared because I felt like how did I even get this money to begin with? So I felt scared to even be asking the questions or pushing back or asking for more. So I love that you had that confidence to just do that. Is that just you, or was that because you had this experience with like seeing your clients in your personal banker um role, or maybe a
Oh,
combination?
it's a combination. It is a kind. So, when I know what I'm talking about, I know what I'm talking about. But I
When
knew
is
what
your
I was
birthday? You
talking
sound
about.
like a Gemini.
I no, I am a Pisces, February 20th. Yeah,
Birthday's coming up soon.
it is. It is. But I've always been that way. Like, if when I know my stuff, I know my stuff. And um so it's my personality, but at the same time, I knew my stuff because I had been in finance for so long. By the
Mm,
time I bought my house, I had been in finance for 10 years. So, yeah, I had the education and then also the street smarts as well. I am that person that goes in Walmart and try to talk them down. Like that whole you don't go to Walmart and ask for coupons. I do. I am that person. So, what can you do for me? I'm spending my money. You're gonna make money off of me. So how can we both benefit from this? At the end of the day, let's make it a win-win situation. So
I absolutely love
it's
this.
always worked for me.
If I was buying a house in North Carolina, I would want you to be my realtor so you could go ahead and like go to bat for me. Like, let's negotiate the heck out of this deal, please.
Yes, everything is negotiable. And until you tell me absolutely no, this is my final offer, I'm not talking to you anymore, we're gonna keep pressing it. Let's see what we can do. Let's see how much both of us can make off of this.
I absolutely love it.
Hmm.
um, so with buying a house that's like a new build, how do you go about even picking the stuff that goes in the house, right? So I guess, okay, here's my question. Do you get to pick everything in terms of the floors, like the backsplash, or is there like certain things that are standard and then you get to pick just a few items? And
So
even
it
like the
depends.
layout and stuff.
Yeah. So it depends on your builder and what type of new build you're getting. So there's custom new build, there is semi-custom new build, and then there is I want to say it's called standard build. So my house is a standard build, and
Okay.
I had two different models. It was the same floor plan, so the house itself would look the same on the inside, but what's called your elevation is what it looks like on the outside was different. I had two different elevations to be able to pick from. And that's like your brick, or is it going to be what color your vinyl siding is. And there are certain, so Charlotte has boroughs, kind of like New York. And there are certain boroughs in Charlotte where the city ordinance says like you can't have the same style of house across the street from each other, and you can't have them beside each other. So there's different in different areas. The specs can be different based on what part of the city you're on. But so my like I said, mine was a standard new build, so I wasn't able to change anything inside, but I could change what was outside. A semi-custom is where they will give you 3 or 4 different options for like your flooring, your tile, your countertops, and your lighting. That's typically about it. And you could choose from those options to put in, but your floor plan will still look the same. Or they may be like you have a loft area that can be a bedroom or it can be a loft, and it's typically, there's a price attached to all of that now. There's different pricing for each tier of whatever it is that you get. And then there's custom build, and a custom build is where you go in and you pick out everything from your flooring, your layout, you go to an architect and they draw out your house for what you want it to look like. I mean, if you watch The Housewives, you saw Kenya and Sheree go through it for years, like figuring out what you want everything to look like. That is a custom built home. And that's where you have the most options, but it's also the most expensive. And that's what I would consider like a dream home purchase. But with the newer, like a DR Horton, a True Homes, a Ryan, those can be semi-custom to standard builds. It depends on what the community is and where it is in Charlotte and where it is in the city.
Whew. So if I'm buying a new build, like would my realtor talk me through all these different details, or like like how would I know like what kind of building it is and like what my options are, like if I am just rolling by and I see this new development going up? Is the best thing to do to like talk to a realtor first, or kind of do your own research first into these different types of buildings?
So when I have new clients, I always tell them, tell me what you want, and then we
Mm-hmm.
can make a plan based off of that. Um, you can say, I want everything custom. Okay, well, these are the communities that we need to look at. Or I want to be able to have XYZ and I don't really care about the flooring and the tile and all that stuff. I just need to have 5 bedrooms. I don't really care what it looks like on the inside. I'll take whatever they have. Okay, well, these are the communities that we need to look at. So if you have a realtor already, work with them because we're not mind readers. So let us know what it is that you're looking for and we can kind of point you in the right direction. If you don't have a realtor, well, even if you do have a realtor, going to the communities, there are agents on site. So they are realtors as well, but they work directly for the builder. And they will tell you, okay, this community is a standard build community. These are the different elevations that you have to choose from, and these are the lots where you can put that. Um, like a custom build community, you go and you find your land, and then you go and you talk to the builder who is over that area and you draw out what you want your house to look like. Um, but your realtor should be steering you as far as like making the appointments to go talk to the on-site agent, or if you're doing like a completely custom build, they should be helping you with making appointments with the architect and the designer and the city and whomever else you need to talk to. That's the point of a realtor. That's the benefit that we provide, because otherwise you have to figure out who to go to. You got to do the research, find out who is allowed in the area, who's not allowed in the area, who already has permits, who has to get permits, what type of neighborhood it is. There's so much that you have to figure out on your own when you don't have a realtor. Yeah, you can do it by yourself, but are you willing to put that sweat equity into it? Most people
Mm.
aren't.
I mean, I see no reason why you wouldn't get a realtor even for a regular transaction, but like it sounds like it's even more essential if you want to buy a new construction, like especially this like a custom build. Sounds like a lot.
Right.
Like if you actually have to like get an architect, go get the permits, do all that, make sure contractor is actually moving on time. That's a lot. And if your realtor is helping you with that, that is a huge help, and they deserve all the commission.
Exactly.
100%.
That's why you gotta pay us a commission. But
And we have a thumbs up. We have a plus for you as a realtor, Niesha.
thank
You
you,
have a
Kelly.
fan. And yeah, realtors are absolutely free. If you are a buyer, you are not paying for your realtor. So like the seller is paying for the
Right.
realtor. So why, if it's free and somebody's gonna help you, like why would you not like get their assistance?
Exactly.
Especially
Well,
if they are an amazing realtor. Go ahead, Nisha.
absolutely. a caveat to that is if you're
Yes.
buying a semi-custom or standard build when it comes to new build homes. Now, the seller is always going to pay the commission when it's a resale. When you're buying a standard or semi-custom, the builder pays the realtor's commission. Now, if you buy a custom build, there is no seller. So that is the only time that a buyer may potentially have to pay the realtor commission. And that's because there's nobody on the opposite side of the table to pay it.
Okay. So a custom build is like you just have this land and you're building your
Hmm.
house. Got it.
Right.
Okay. It's
Hmm.
not that you're not getting this custom built from a specific builder.
Right. Hmm.
Okay. Got it. Understood. Yep. Awesome. Um, where are we with this story? Let me gather my thoughts. All right. So you pick the outside. So for you, it's just the outside of the building that you got to pick,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
So how long from the time you put in for the time you signed the contract? You said it was 6 months till you closed. Yes.
Yeah. 6 months.
Okay.
6 months and like 8 days.
So what were you? So in that time frame, what did you have to do in terms of what you had to get to the bank to get this moving, or what you had to get to the builder to get this moving? Any glitches in those 6 months? Like what were you just hanging out and chilling and drinking some coffee those 6 months?
It wasn't coffee. It wasn't coffee. That is where the stress comes in because
Ooh.
I'm not a very patient person. So me waiting for something for 6 months, golly. But it was okay. So as far as financing is concerned, I had to continuously update my paperwork every 30 days because a pre-approval only lasts for 60 days. So I had to make sure I continuously got like pay stubs and the year ended in the middle of my process. So I had to get a new W-2 form over and bank statements and everything. So that is a continuous process. I hear clients say all the time, like, why do I have to give them so much paperwork? Life happens every 30 days. So that your situation may change from December 1st to January 31st twice. So you need to make sure you can show that on paper what your financial situation looks like. Um, from actually getting the house built perspective, that was to just hurry up and wait. I had to pay half of my deposit up front when I signed my paperwork, and then I had to pay the other half of the deposit 60 days from that day. So I signed my paperwork on September 14th, and I had to pay the rest of my deposit 60 days after that, whatever that date was. Um, but other than that, luckily, I lived close enough that I could come by here and drive by every day to see the house and see the progress. There were when you do a new build, there are different meetings that you have to have with your builder. So I got to see the house when they poured the foundation. I had a meeting with the builder. When they put up the frame, I had a walkthrough to see the framing. And had a meeting with the builder. Then I had a pre-drywall meeting. So the roof was up. I could walk up the stairs, even though there was no like floor carpeting or anything like that. This was before they actually put the drywall up. That meeting is crucial so you can see where your lines are, see how everything is connected inside the house. Then after the drywall meeting, after they put everything up, then there was another meeting for like electrical and to see the house. I was driving by every day. So a lot of these meetings I had already had with myself before I had with my builder. But then after we got everything up and the house was done, the framing was I mean the walls were up, everything was painted, the lights was in, everything like that. You have your blue tape meeting. And this is where you go through with your realtor and you literally have blue tape. Some realtors use green tape, but most builders prefer blue tape. And you go through and you find every little crack and out of place, crookedness, the door doesn't close right, the hinge is out of whack, everything that you don't like about the house before you go to closing, and you put blue tape everywhere. And the builder comes in and they fix it. Then you come back in again a couple days later. You go through, make sure they fixed everything. If not, you put more blue tape down. So that happened for like 2 weeks. Um, and that was that was the probably the most stressful part, other than waiting itself. That was the most stressful part because I'm like, I told you I don't like repeating myself. That's another thing. So it's like, I told you this already. Why is it not fixed? So that can get stressful. Um, but my realtor was great with that. She was like, I'm gonna come through while you're not here just to make sure everything is okay. And then I know you're gonna come back. So when you come back again, just make sure everything is okay. Um, and then you have your final meeting. I had my final meeting the day of my closing. That morning, came through, walked through the house, signed paperwork to say I agreed that everything was good to go to closing. Made sure everything looked good, signed my warranty paperwork, and then I went to closing that evening.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. I thought it was just me that kind of that went to houses. I like drive by the house like every few days just to make sure it's still there, which is
I
totally
didn't know if it was
crazy.
gonna blow
So,
away.
so I love that you'd be going into the building by yourself, having your little meetings
Hmm.
by yourself to make sure everything was moving properly.
Right. Yep. Yep.
So
I
so for
came
these
through.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I would come through. Hmm.
So for the phase meetings, the contractor meetings, would your realtor come with you for those meetings, or is it just you and the builder?
Out of
But
the
before
like
you got to the blue tape meetings.
Right. So out of the like 6 meetings that I had with my builder, because it was like once a month that we would meet. Out of the 6 meetings, I'd say she probably attended like 4 of them. And the only reason she wouldn't attend is if she had another client that she was showing. But she was very good about making sure she was aware of what was going on with my process, as she should, because she got paid for it. So
I love it. So if you're out here thinking, hey, I'm not paying my realtor myself, the seller's paying him or the builder's paying them, so I can't be asking them for anything. No, 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 no. Like you absolutely can. Like if you don't have a good experience, then you need to let them know. So your realtor's getting
right.
paid,
So
make them work for it.
exactly. So the thing about being a realtor is for part of our, so you have real estate agents and then you have realtors. I'm a realtor, so I have a fiduciary responsibility to my clients to keep their best interests at heart at all times. I can't keep their best interests at heart if I don't know what's going on with the transaction, regardless of who's paying you. If you're going to make a dime from the transaction as a realtor or real estate agent, you have a duty to them to make sure you know what's going on and to make sure that they are aware of what's going on. And you can't do that if you don't know. So being present is important.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so when you say there's the little side note before we get back into the house story, when you say there's a difference in a realtor and a real estate agent, like what do
Hmm.
you tell us more about what you mean, right? 'Cause I think
So
for so we can contextualize as like a regular person, like how do we, uh, yeah, what do you mean by the difference?
So a lot of people, layman's uses real estate agent and realtor interchangeably, but they're actually
Like real estate
two different
broker.
things. Real
Hmm.
estate broker,
Yep.
they're they are different things. They're actually different job titles, if you want to say. So I'm a broker realtor. So I have a lot more responsibility and a lot more accountability on me than a real estate agent would have. A real estate agent doesn't have a designation from the National Association of Realtors, which we are bound, not just held to, but we are bound by ethical fiduciary duties to our clients. And if we don't uphold those, we can lose our designation. In North Carolina, we're brokers. We're not just salespeople. We're brokers. So I can open up, I have to go through certain criteria checkpoint, but I can open up my own firm, like a Keller Williams, that's a firm. I can open up my own firm at some point. And then a real estate agent is just someone who's gone through the class, they've taken the test, and they passed, and they've paid their dues. That doesn't necessarily make them a realtor, and they aren't bound by as many ethical and fiduciary duties as a realtor would be. So the being having your best interest at heart, ethically, yes, they should, but they're not bound by any legalities to have to do so.
Right. So basically, there's what you're saying. There's like different, basically, there's different tiers, different levels. Right. So
Hmm.
everybody has to take their course in their state, and then there's a certain level where you've hit certain points, and now you can become a realtor. Then there's a certain level where now, if you have X amount of sales or X amount of, depending on the state, then now you can become a broker, and you can actually have people that are working underneath you.
Theoretically, yes, but the requirements are that's not the requirement. Like, so as soon as I came out of school, I paid my dues and did the testing to be a realtor. In North Carolina, we're automatically brokers. Is the language that we use in the state.
Mhm.
So like in Florida, you have to take an additional class to be a broker. I didn't
Yep.
have to take an additional class. I'm automatically a broker. As far as being a realtor, there's just extra fees that we have to pay, and there's another test that we have to take. You don't have to hit any benchmarks to be able to be a realtor. It's just a matter of taking the test and paying the fees, which are a lot. Um,
Oh, which are a lot, you said.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Got it. Got it. So awesome. So it sounds like in North Carolina, if you're dealing with a realtor, they have a little bit more skin in the game than a real estate agent.
Right.
So yeah, in New York, you have to anyway, yes. Um, so make sure you're looking at people's titles. Make sure you check to see in your specific state like what the differences are. But at the end, no matter what the person's title is, if they're not having conversations with you to understand, Niesha was saying like what your goal is and what you're trying to do, like that's the most important bit. Um, so I don't think I asked you this actually. How much was the house? How much was the house? And how much did you have to like put into it in order to close the deal?
So my house was just over 260. It's like 263.5. And some change. I went to the closing table with uh a little over 12,000. So like 12,300. And then like I said, I got most of that back from the rebate that I had from Navy Federal.
Yeah. I think $12,000 to buy a whole house. Like for me, I feel like that's not not too bad. But
No.
you have to so he said no. But you had to like getting all that money together. Was it just like being on top of your budget like you were talking about initially, or was there another strategy that you used to like propel yourself to like get this 12 grand in order to buy this house?
So it was budgeting, a lot of budgeting, because I also like luxury items. And like I said, I like Starbucks and I like my things. So saying you can't have all the things right now until you can close on this house, that was a little difficult for me. But that was part of it. It's like, do you want the house or do you want the purse? So, saying, well, it'll be there after I close on my house. That was the most important. And like if I were to go into like Target or somewhere like that and I saw something that I want, if it's here when I come back, that means it was meant for me. If it's not here, it wasn't meant for me to have. A lot of that went on. I also picked up, so I have a graphic design business as well, and I picked up a contract with that for a few years actually, and that I would leave that money alone. Like I put it to the side, and I'm not gonna touch it until after I buy my house, and that was not only me being able to go to the closing table with as much as I did, but then moving in with brand new furniture. So a lot of budgeting, a lot of discipline. I think that's probably the key word that I've been looking for. It's discipline,
Mm,
and patience
and focus.
and focus. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. For anybody that is here that doesn't know, like we keep saying closing table, like what does that mean? What happens at closing? Um,
The closing table is where you go and pay your monies. That's where the monies exchange hands. You
where the
get your
money
keys.
disappears.
Right. The money is gone. It is used. That's where you get your keys. You sign your life away in blood and you get your keys. And I'm being dramatic, but that's what it feels. It can feel that way. And it's different for different types of property. So like an investment property is like 3 or 4 different pages, whereas a new build, I had to sit there. It was like a 45-minute process of just signing paperwork, signing your life away. So many different pages. Um, and then once the paperwork is signed, the check is processed and you get your keys. And that is the closing table. But what most people don't understand is that doesn't mean go out and screw your credit up tomorrow, because it does take 3 days for that transaction to close, to actually close. It's the closing table, but the transaction itself won't close for another 3 days. And you can still get your keys taken away in that time frame. Because if you go out and you mess your credit up in that time frame, you spend all your money, the checks don't balance. Yeah, it can still happen. So you still got to be smart and don't forget everything that you've learned throughout that process.
Mm. Any surprises at your closing, or did it go pretty smooth?
No, my closing was very smooth, thank God.
That's awesome.
I know you reached out to me based on my closing video that you saw on my YouTube channel, and those tears was real because that was not for the
Wow.
camera, because it was like I made it, I got here, and and this is done for essentially this is done. I got my keys. I'm good. It was a very prayerful process, and I couldn't do anything but thank God, no hiccups. There was no calls done at the closing table like, no, this ain't happening, like none of that. It happens though. It
Mm-hmm.
happens.
Mm-hmm.
But thank God it didn't happen.
And I will link that video in the description so you can see the whole closing day vlog. And you can see the tears as well. But yeah, I mean, I could those tears definitely felt real for sure. And it's like you said earlier, buying a house is stressful, and now like having it dragged out over 6 months because something is being built from scratch, and then like the last few, that the blue tape process sounds stressful as well. So I'm glad that your
Hmm.
closing was not stressful, because sometimes that can be a whole other nightmare as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um
Yeah.
so I guess thinking back to buying this house, like buying a new build specifically, and your process for getting here, is there anything that you wish you had done differently with this particular house?
And no, my why is calling me. um, no, I don't have any regrets. My realtor is great. My lender was amazing. We have a relationship now with him being one of my preferred lenders for my clients. Um, my builder, it was good. I'm not gonna say
Okay.
great, because, like I said, I had to go through the blue tape process for like 2 weeks. So I'm not gonna say it was great, but it wasn't horrible. I obviously decided to keep the house, so Um, I don't think there was anything. I'm where God wanted me to be, and this place was put here for me for a reason. So I'm
Mm.
gonna go through with the reason.
Mm-hmm. What's yours? It's yours.
Right. Hmm.
And you said your why is calling you. Like, tell us a little bit more about that. Like why tell us more about that.
Well, my son, for those that don't who don't get it,
Yeah, yes.
my
Or
son was just calling me.
if you didn't
Um,
hear him.
right. I don't know if you guys can hear him or not, but that was kind of loud. So, but because I do this for him. Like, I've worked since I was 15. And prior to becoming a realtor, I had done some different real estate investment strategies and things like that, wholesaling. For those who don't understand, I did some wholesaling. Um, I call him my why because while I do want him to have the foundational aspect of what it means to have to work for the things that you have, it doesn't have to be hard. I'm not from that mindset of get it out the mud. I'm getting it out the mud so that he doesn't have to. So my reason for buying this property is so that it can be an investment property. When I get to a certain age, it's no longer mine, it's his. I'll sell it to him for $1. And that now it's his investment property. I'm not going to make him go to college, but I am going to make him get his real estate license, because at the end of the day, no matter what this world does, no matter what the economy does, no matter how much it changed from a technology standpoint, there's always going to be a need for people to have somewhere to live. And there's always going to be a need for somebody to sell and help them sell and buy and be in those transactions. Even if he just becomes a transaction coordinator, which is the person who fills out the paperwork and makes sure you go to closing, that's a stream of income that he already has. So me learning these things, having this knowledge about finances and real estate is 100% specifically so that he doesn't have to go and work at a bank for 12 years to be able to figure it out. While I had specific examples of very powerful women owning real estate as I was growing up, they didn't teach me anything about it. I just saw it. So, I want him to be able to get it from home. He doesn't have to get it in the streets because he can get it from mommy. So that is why I say he's my why.
Whew, that was so powerful. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And like the fact that you're saying like there were examples of women that had real estate, but they didn't teach you. So I love
Right.
that your whole thing is, hey, like I want you to know about this from home, from right now, so you don't have to put in the sweat equity and put in the sweat equity for somebody else later, right? You can just do it
Mm-hmm.
for yourself and like keep it amongst us from the very beginning. Absolutely
Yeah.
love that. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So you still have that house right now, right? You haven't sold
Mm-hmm.
it.
No,
we're
no.
still we're still
I
at
get
that
calls
5-year track.
every day about selling it. Yes, I get calls every day from investors. Are you interested in selling? No. And if I decide to, I'll list it and you can get one of your clients to buy it. But no.
Exactly. So you said that when you bought this house, you were not a realtor. Now you are.
No.
So how, like you said, there was a funny story about that. Like, how did that come about? How did you decide that this is what you wanted to do after you bought that house?
So
Is this a good story?
I mean, for me, it is. I don't know. It's entertaining to me. Everybody else may not think so. But having to go through 4 realtors, I learned a lot about what I didn't like.
Mm,
So for me, it is 100% tied to, I'm that person when I see a problem, I immediately go to solve. I'm not the person that's going to wait around for somebody else. I told you I don't have any patience. So I'm not the person that's going to wait around for somebody else to fix it. Okay, there's a problem in the real estate industry. Number one, um, dealing with the guy that's basically told me he didn't want to work with me as a Black woman. There's a need for more Black real estate agents, period. Um, Number two, having somebody that, people that just didn't communicate well. Okay, there's a need for people who know how to communicate. There's a need for people that have some financial background in real estate. So I learned a lot about what I didn't like. And I was like, I can fix this going forward if I become a realtor. I've always enjoyed looking at, you know, buildings and different properties. And ever since I got my first apartment, I love just going to apartments just to look at them and seeing different structures and things like that. I've always loved that. But it just became apparent that there was a need for me to go ahead and do that as I was looking for my house and going through so much agony with different realtors. And then also, there was a point in my process where someone told me that I'm going to teach you this, but I'm not just teaching this to you for you to sit on it. You got to teach somebody else. So in that same moment, I heard God say, this ain't about you. So me being able to get this knowledge and then go back and teach other single women, other single moms, other Black women about this and what it takes and the process and be educated on it and know that nobody can take advantage of you because you know your stuff. That's another big why. That's like my number two. My son is first, and then being able to educate other people is second, strong second. So I don't know, maybe it ain't a funny story, but it's definitely my story.
It wasn't funny, but I definitely felt it. Took us to church. Look, we have a whole bunch of hearts here. Everybody's like, yes, yes, preach. That knowledge bit is so crucial, because if you don't know how something works, like how are you gonna like be a part of it, right? If you want to play if you want to
Hmm.
play a game, you don't know all the rules, you can play the game and you might be just fine, but you have a heck of a better chance of winning if you actually understand how things work. And there's so many gaps in us understanding how things work that it's like hard for you to
Right,
even like try to get ahead if you don't even understand the basics. So I absolutely
right.
love that you were like, hey, like I can make this better, and so I'm going to jump in and I'm going to do something about it. I don't know if you know the
Hmm.
stats for like what percentage of like the real estate industry in terms of like the real estate, the like agent side is like black
Only,
women.
not women specifically, but only about 6% of realtors are Black.
No
Period. That's
way.
men and women. That's men and women.
What?
And only 6%.
Wow.
I just looked up that
Wow.
stat the other day, actually, because it's Black History Month, and so
Mm.
I want to make sure I educate my people around Black history from a real estate perspective. But I was shocked to even read that only 6% of realtors across the U.S. That's just not North. That's not just North Carolina. That's across the United States. Only 6% of realtors are Black.
Wow. Yeah, we need more black people in the real estate industry. Absolutely.
Yeah, and only 14% of home ownership is Black. So that says a lot. Though that is,
Yep.
I believe, is a direct correlation to one another.
Yeah, because if I don't know if we talked about this earlier, but if you don't see examples of if you don't see example if like everybody on your block is renting and you're all black and like nobody owns, you just have this idea in your head that like, oh, I can't own a house. But if you see
Right.
more examples of people that look like you that are doing this thing, then it feels like it's something more attainable, something more doable. And
Yes.
part of the reason why I started decided to do this, to just have more conversations with like regular women that are buying their houses, just to show that hey, like you can do this too. But
Hmm.
especially for black people, especially people of color, like your house is an easy way for you to increase your net worth drastically. Like before starting some side hustle, before selling on Amazon, before selling on t-shirts, before selling doing these other little things which absolutely can get you ahead. Like just owning where you live like will get you ahead to make all those other things a lot easier. So I
Immediately.
go ahead.
No, I just say immediately. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've checked the how much your house is worth today. Do you have any idea of what that's sitting at? And it was around 260 when you first bought it, right?
Right. So I do check that actually frequently.
You're like, I check
Probably
it every month.
it's probably OCD at this point, but yeah. So I bought my house in 2000 in February of 2021. I closed on my home. Today I can have access to over $100,000 immediately
Woo,
if I want.
woo. And that's after like a year and a half, right? We're 20
A
like
year and a half.
yeah, couple, yeah. And
Hmm.
so it's like if you were, doing a little side hustle, it might blow up in a year. You could make 100 grand, sure. But this is 100 grand where all you're doing is just going home and sleeping. And that's it.
That's it.
That's it. Right.
That's
So
all I
I
did was
think
sign the
that's
paperwork.
sign the paperwork, shed a few tears, and then just move right in. Uh,
Right.
I absolutely love this. We have so we have some more North Carolina love in the house. North Carolina is very popular today. What's up, Don Omar? So we have a question. I'm gonna pop it over to you, Nisha. So if between you before you close, if you get a new job, what is the deal? Like, why should you or should you not do this? We're gonna
So that is a pretty common question actually. It's a if question. So should you just change jobs? just for the sake of I'm not happy at my job, stick it out. Stick it out. If
Why
you're
do you
not getting a
stick it out?
raise, because it could change your financial situation. Um, that a lender looks to see for you to have at least 2 years of stable job history with the same, at least within the same industry. So if you're not going to get a raise by switching jobs, and I mean like a substantial raise, by switching jobs, if it's going to be a different industry that you don't have any prior experience in, um, and if it's going to be a difference in like your living situation, if you have to, if you're having to move for some reason or something like that, don't do it. Stick it out until after you close, and then put your 2 weeks notice in. But stick it out because it can make the difference between you going to the closing table. So yeah, if you're not going to get some type of substantial raise, or it's outside of the industry that you already work in, and you don't have any prior experience with it, don't do it. Do not change your job.
Yeah, if you don't have to, just hang tight, and then after you
Mhm.
close, do whatever you got to do, because you don't want
Right.
this switch to end up messing up your opportunity to get this house.
Exactly.
Um, so I know you talked about you want to see more black realtors or black agents. Is there anything that you are doing to kind of um push this forward?
Right now, I have to build my brand. That's what I'm doing right
Build
now.
your
Is building my brand, getting more knowledge myself, networking. Learning my area more. That's always going to be a constant, is learning the area, because in Charlotte it's always changing. But me being able to know my stuff and educate other people, like, I feel like that is what will help other people say, I do have a knack for real estate. I do, I've been wanting to do this. Maybe it's time to push the button. It is a need for this. So I don't see competition. We can
yeah.
collaborate. We can all collaborate. There's two sides to the closing table, three sides to the closing table, because you got your listing agent, your buyer's agent, and the attorney. We need we need more closing attorneys, real estate attorneys, black real estate attorneys. We need, and there's so many different sides to real estate. We need more black appraisers. We need more black contractors. Like, it's not just being a realtor. There are so many aspects to real estate that people don't even think about. The people that come in and do the inspections, um, the value of your
Notaries.
house, notaries, the value of your house can change simply because of the person who appraises it.
Ooh,
And it's sad, but it's true. Um, so we need more black appraisers. If we don't need any more black anything else in real estate, we need more black appraisers, because that's what helps build generational wealth, is the value of the home. And if somebody isn't appraising the home correctly because of the pictures that they see on the wall, got the wrong skin color, it don't happen for me. We're not moving forward. So
yep,
yeah, it's more aspects
yep.
than just being a
Um,
realtor.
yeah, I cannot agree more with anything that you said. I 100% agree with that. If I have your contact information in the description box, but if somebody wants to work with you, well,
Mhm.
do you work just in Charlotte? Like, what's your area that you cover
So
actually?
I can service the entire North Carolina, state of North Carolina. I can service all of North Carolina. I like to stay with the areas that I know. So if you're in a different city, if it's a city that I'm not familiar with, I don't have access to that city's MLS, I can refer you to someone who I feel like would give you the same treatment that I would. I know realtors that I work with closely, but I'm just licensed in North Carolina. When I first started, I was like, oh, I'm getting licensed in Virginia and Florida and Georgia and South Carolina. I was like, I can't really give the type of care that I want to give to those people in those areas. So I'm just sticking with North Carolina. But I can always refer any state, anywhere in the entire United States. I can refer you to someone who I know will give you the same level of attention and detail and courtesy.
Awesome. And so, what is the best way to contact you if somebody's watching this and they want to talk to you about buying a house, whether it's in North Carolina or somewhere else, like what is the best way for them
Mhm.
to find you?
The best ways to reach me would probably be send me a text message.
Okay.
Because send me a text message or send me an email, and then let's schedule for us to have like a Zoom meeting or just a phone call, whatever they prefer. If it's someone local, I'm not opposed. You know, I bought my house so I can get Starbucks now. We can go to Starbucks. We can meet at Starbucks. Or anywhere else. You know, I will, if it's someone who's trying to list a home for them to sell. I'd love to come and meet you at your house so that way we can knock out two
Mm,
birds with one stone. But they can reach me. My phone number is 980-272-8828. And my email address is qcrealestate at nbeckwith, BECKWITH.com.
okay.
And then we can go from there.
That is awesome. I will also drop those in the description box. So if you're not watching live, if you're watching the replay, you can grab those down there. And do you have anything that's coming up where people can see you? Maybe.
So I am getting ready to start doing kind of a brunch and learn. Um, I'm still trying to get the finalized details for the first one. The first one is going to be March 18th, here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am still finalizing some details, but they will all be on my social media accounts and everywhere else. If you send me a text message and you want details, I can send you the flyer once I get the details finalized. But it's going to be a brunch and learn. So for anyone who is interested in more information about buying their first home or buying their second home, buying a first time investment property, if you're ready to take that step, or if you just have general questions at all about real estate, it's all real estate related. I'm going to have a loan originator and hopefully a closing agent, a real estate attorney present to be able to answer questions in addition to myself. So that's going to be again March 18th here in Charlotte, North Carolina. The details will be out soon, so make sure you follow me on social media so that you can get those details once I get them finalized and get ready to start promoting it.
And even if you're watching this and it's after March 18th, I was like, these are going to be happening moving forward. So definitely
Yes.
reach out to Niesha to see like when the next one is going to be happening so that you get to, hang out. And I think it's awesome
Yeah.
that you have all these uh, industry perspectives that'll be there just so you have like different voices on. So because you might say something one thing and then the attorney says the same thing a different way and it might just land with that person differently. So I think this is
Right.
absolutely amazing. And the best thing that you can do, Naisha mentioned this earlier, is just understand the process. If you understand the process, then you are going to be more confident with communicating what you want and moving forward.
Right.
So I think it's just great that you're doing this. We have a question for us. Any advice for people that feel like they aren't able to afford anything on the market right now? Thank you for this question. What do you think,
That is
Nisha?
a good question. If you find yourself in that position where the things that you're seeing outweigh what your budget is right now, that might be an opportunity for you to kind of sit back and again, it's everything is situational. Maybe interview some different lenders. Maybe a different lender will be able to give you some different perspective. If it's your first purchase, look into some first time home buyer programs, because they can help you with closing costs and different programs. There's a program called NACA that they will send you through like some classes to be able to help you determine a better budget. Also, house hacking, which is something that I really want to get into in some of these brunch and learns. It's consider house hacking, where you purchase a property that may need some additional love, but it's going to be cheaper on the market. It's going to be more affordable and maybe more so in your price range. You just may have to show it some additional love, update some things as you go along, because not only are you buying it at a lower price point, but you could sell it for a higher one because you've come in and done all the updates. Another way to house hack is again buying some property that may need some additional love, but there's more than one unit. So you can get a duplex or a triplex. Even though there's more doors, they're not always necessarily more expensive. and you can rent the other spaces out. So having someone else pay your mortgage for you. There are so many different ways to be creative when it comes to real estate. You just have to get with someone who has some sound knowledge and doesn't just have linear thinking. Sometimes you got to get creative with it. So what you might see as you not having enough and not having a big enough budget right now, if you get creative with it, you might actually have more than what you need. You just got to talk to the right people.
Yeah, I absolutely love that thought of talking to people and understanding like what else can you do, right? Because you might be thinking that, hey, this is the only way to do it, but then there's so many other ways. Um,
Hmm.
and I would just say, like, if you're saying you feel like you can't afford, like, have you actually talked to somebody? Have you talked to a lender?
Right.
Have you talked to a real estate agent? Because sometimes you may think that you can't afford your first house, but banks will give you crazy amounts of money.
If you got the
Which is
credit,
wild.
they will.
Yeah. So when I bought my first house, I was making $48,000, and they're willing to give me 600 grand, which I think is absolutely insane. And so you talk to a lender to have them look at your specific situation, look at your income, your credit, like your debt, and they can tell you exactly what your range is, and then see
Hmm.
if, okay, based on this range, what can I actually like look at in my area. Whereas if you just feel like you can't buy, but you haven't actually talked to somebody, then you might just be putting limits on yourself that don't actually exist. So, and even if you're not sure, talk to Niesha. She'll hook you up
Right.
with her lender,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
they can take a look at what your options are. Um,
Right.
so I think I have one last question for you, Niesha. Um, if someone is coming to you, right, and they're like, hey, like, I want to buy this house, single moms comes to you, I want to buy this house, but I'm not really sure um if it's the right time, I'm a little bit nervous, like, what's one thing that you would say to her to help her make a decision?
First, I'm going to beg her question. And I just learned this phrase not too long ago. It's going to be a Socratic seminar immediately. Because what do you mean by the right time?
Mm.
If you feel like you're ready, the right time is when you have the money to do so and you're ready to learn how to get it done. That's the right time. Because if she were to come to me and say that, and she means because she's not married or she doesn't have a partner to do it with, at the end of the day, y'all have two different incomes and you go to work every day, and just because you're married does not solidify and guarantee that that person is always going to be in a financial situation to help you. People lose their job every day. People go through things and finances change. So my advice is to make sure that you get into a home that you can afford on your own, and if you do then get married, that's just a bonus. um but don't and I'm not bitter, I don't have a hatred for men or anything like that, but don't wait on a man. Like, don't wait on a partner or a woman, whatever your preference is. Don't wait on somebody else. Don't let other people's lives and presence affect your passions, your drive, your goals, your ambitions. Don't let what somebody else got going on affect you. If you feel like it's the right time, you got the money to do it, you're ready to learn how to do it, then now is the right time. And you should definitely go ahead and start your process.
Whew. Who wants to go to Niesha's church? I know I do.
That is not my calling. Mm-mm.
All right,
That's not it. That is not it.
we'll just come to brunch with you then.
There we go. We can do brunch.
Say it louder for the people, is what Kelly is saying. Niesha, thank
Yes.
you so much for dropping all of the gems. Thank you so much. If you are in Charlotte, make sure you hit her up to go to her brunch that's coming up in March. If you're watching the replay, go ahead and check the description box for all her links. Reach out to her no matter where you're buying, and she'll hook you up with the right team for you. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out, and I will see you on the next episode.